Hey, so are you interested in starting a nonprofit, but you're an introvert and you're not sure it's going to work for you? I'm going to share some tips just for you in this video. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help people start their nonprofits. If you need help starting a nonprofit or raising money for your new nonprofit, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I drop videos every single week. And make sure you're following me on Facebook and Instagram at bossonab. All right, so I have a confession to make. I am actually an introvert. So it may not seem like it, I don't know, by you watching these videos, but I actually am very much an introvert. I do not get my energy from other people. I like being alone. I like quiet time. And I just thought I would put a different spin on the videos that I do for you guys. So I typically do straight educational content and just tell you like, this is what you do, this is how you do it. But I thought it would be great to kind of shed light on what it's like to run a nonprofit, given your different personality style or your working style. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 traits of introverts and how you can use that or leverage that to help start your nonprofit. If you do need the nitty-gritty of starting a nonprofit, make sure you check out the video that I did. It's a very detailed how-to video on starting your nonprofit. And also check out my nonprofit startup workbook. It's linked below in the description box and it guides you through the first year of your nonprofit. Also, make sure you wait to the end of the video because I'm going to give you 2 extra bonus tips for how to navigate the nonprofit startup space if you're an introvert. Okay, so the first trait that introverts typically have is that they tend to be better at one-on-one interaction and not the greatest in group interactions or with large crowds, because with extroverts they tend to get energy or energized by a lot of people, but it can be really draining for introverts. So they tend to be better at face-to-face or one-on-one. So how does that help you if you're starting a nonprofit? Well, a lot of building your nonprofit and being financially sustainable is based on relationship, and you build relationships one-on-one, learning about people, listening to their needs, just learning more about their personal lives, and just actually caring and have compassion about what's going on for them, right? So when you build strong interpersonal relationships with people, people begin to trust you, you become credible to them, and they will vouch for you. They will provide support for you. Eventually, they may give money to you. So those one-on-one relationships matter. An example of that would be someone gives to your nonprofit and you call them and you begin to ask them, okay, well, what inspires you to give and what more would you like to hear from us? You're developing a relationship, you're asking questions, and that builds such trust with people that you can potentially have a lifelong giver because you took the time to do that. And a lot of introverts would thrive in that space, right? You can control how you reach out to someone, you can control how you have that conversation, but it can still be of great benefit to your organization. Another trait that introverts have is that they tend to only speak when they really have something to say. I'm like that too. So I don't like to say anything if other people are saying or other people have made the point. But if I feel like, okay, I can add or contribute to the conversation, that's when I'll speak up. But generally, I won't really say much else. And the reason why that's key for a nonprofit startup founder is because it's more than likely that you're a good listener, right? So if you're not going to always speak or step up or have to be like the center of attention, as some extroverts tend to be, then that means you're probably really good at listening, engaging where other people are. And listening is such a key skill to be successful for your nonprofit. It's important when it comes to fundraising, being able to listen to your donors, to be able to figure out what they really need or what they're really interested in. It's a key skill in listening to your clients, to the people that you serve, because you don't want to provide services that don't align with their actual needs. And you want to hear from them and get feedback from them to make sure you're providing the best effective service possible. You need to listen to your staff because you can't run an organization well if you're not listening and adhering to the needs of the people who are doing the work alongside you. And the same goes for your board. Your board needs to feel supported. Your board needs to feel like they have the support they need to do the work well, and you got to listen to hear what their needs are. So listening is such a key skill that you need as a nonprofit founder, and introverts really tend to excel at that. So it's important that you use that skill. Another trait that introverts tend to have is that they're observant. So because they sit back, they take things in a lot, they tend to observe people, they observe their body language, they take note of things. They tend to be good researchers. They take good notes on things. And that's a really good skill to have, particularly in the beginning stage of your nonprofit. One of the things I always recommend for people when they say, I want to start a nonprofit, I want to do some good in my community, I always tell people to do a needs assessment or a landscape scan to see what's really happening in your community. Because you may think there's a need, but there may not be the need that you think exists out there. So I always suggest people to find similar nonprofits that are doing work in your space, to be able to study them, to figure out how they do the work that they do, to talk to them to figure out what the needs are in the community, to talk to people who would be your potential clients to figure out what the needs will be, and just take note of that and make moves and make your calculations based on your assessment of what's happening in your community. So I never suggest that you just go out there and immediately start going into paperwork. You got to do the planning, and as you do the planning, you have to observe, you have to do your research. So that's why you as an introvert would excel as a nonprofit founder, because it's so important to watch the moves of people around you, to learn what nonprofits do, to learn what they're good at, to learn what they're not good at, so you can fill in those gaps and fill those needs that are not being addressed in your community. So make sure you're always tapping into your observation skills, because they are so crucial to be successful. Another trait that introverts tend to have is that they don't like to be the center of attention. So a lot of the documentation I looked at, regarding introverts and extroverts said that extroverts like to be the center of attention. They like to talk a lot, all that kind of stuff. But introverts are the opposite of that. They prefer to kind of step back and let everyone else shine. First of all, do you guys agree with that? Let me know in the comments below. But if you do agree that a lot of times introverts tend to like to share the credit or share the limelight, then that's a great skill to have as a nonprofit founder. Why? Because there's nothing that you can do successfully on your own. So if you're looking to get credit as, I started this nonprofit, it's my thing, it's my vision, it's my baby, and it's all about I, you're going to have a hard time getting where you need to go. You're going to learn very quickly that being successful as a nonprofit means you have to operate as a team. First and foremost, your first team is your board of directors, but you're going to need groups and communities of people to help lift you up. You're going to need groups and communities of volunteers or groups and communities of donors. You're going to have to rely on teams of people, and you got to be able to share the limelight and share space with other people. So that's why it's a great skill to have as a nonprofit founder, if you're an introvert, to be able to support other people, lift people up. Now, I'm not saying that extroverts just want to take the credit for everything. I'm not saying that. But it seems that introverts tend to do that a little better, or don't have to work as hard to do that. And again, that's a great skill to have, because you have to support your team, support your staff, support your donors, and support your volunteers. All right, so the last trait that introverts tend to have that I'm going to talk about is they tend to communicate better through writing rather than speaking. Or if they are good at speaking, they tend to be really reflective and like to think and pause before they speak, right? And the reason why this is a good skill to have as a nonprofit founder is because you have to do a lot of writing and a lot of reflection as a nonprofit. So let's just go with the obvious one. grant writing. You have to be able to sit down and talk about the value of your organization, why you do what you do, why it's so important, the impact that you have on your community. You have to be able to detail all the activities that you do, and you have to be able to communicate that effectively, right? Doing that well takes a lot of reflection, takes a lot of assessment of where you are to be able to communicate that in written form. So as a nonprofit founder, you're going to find yourself having to be around groups of people at times, doing presentations, talking about your organization. But as an introvert, you may be extremely uncomfortable in that position. If you're able to instead write and you're really good at reflection and writing, well, you can use that to leverage the online visibility of your nonprofit. So if you're good at writing, you can be in charge of social media posts or be in charge of the website content, or really think about how to organize your content in a written form so people understand the work that you're doing. Or if you have an email list, you can be in charge of doing all the email content for your nonprofit. So I'm not saying, again, that extroverts are not good writers, but if you're an introvert and you're trying to figure out, well, how can I help my nonprofit? If I don't feel comfortable doing that, what else can I do? Then you can leverage the writing part, right? The back end part of everything, because you have to have a clear message. You have to be able to communicate it well through written form. If you're doing grants, if you're developing one-pagers, if you're developing, applications for corporate sponsorships and things like that. So that's still a skill. If you would rather just be more reflective and write instead of speak, that's still something that can be advantageous to your nonprofit and help you become more successful. So again, at the beginning of the video, I promised to share 2 tips that have helped me as an introvert that I want to share with you. The first one is, for all the things that you're not that great at or you're not comfortable with, partner with someone else who can pick up the slack. So I, in my personal life, have tended to be attracted to people who are extroverts, people who love to talk, people who love to be in the limelight. I just have naturally all my life had friends like that. And I think it's because it's a compliment to what I do. I'm the more reflective. I sit back and think about things, and they're more kind of out there. So find people who compliment you so that as you're starting your nonprofit, if you really don't feel comfortable putting yourself out there or being in group settings, you have someone that you're partnered with who's on your board or who's on your team who can kind of do that piece of the work for you when you can't do it yourself. The other tip that I'll give you is make sure you leverage social media and online mediums. So the reason why I love YouTube is because I'm here by myself recording, but still developing relationships with people all across the world, right? But I get to kind of control the space. I get to set the parameters, and I'm more comfortable being in my own space. So you can definitely use online mediums or online ways to connect with people if you just are not comfortable being around a lot of people, or it's just not your sweet spot being in big groups. So think about all the different social media platforms and how you can use them to your advantage so that you can still get your message out and you can still connect to people, but it's not overwhelming for you. So I want to hear from you guys. Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? And how do you think that plays out, whether it's in your personal life, with your nonprofit, or with your business? I would love to hear more about your experience. But also, if you still need help with your nonprofit, you can feel free to visit me at www.bossonabudget.com, and you can schedule time with me and we can talk. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.